Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Cattleman's Call podcast. I'm Lane Nordland. Thanks for joining us here today, and we are having our conversation from Washington, D.C. A lot going on this week during the Legislative Conference 2026. Honored to be joined today by Mr. Kent Backus from the D.C. office with NCBA, Mr. Dusty Hawley, Executive Director of the Florida Cattlemen's Association. So I want to welcome you both to the podcast. Dusty, have you been on this podcast before? I can't remember.
I haven't. I've listened to it a handful of times, but I haven't been a guest.
I think you're our number 3 fan.
Oh, there we go. That's true.
My mom and aunt.
That's
probably.
Right. That's right.
But we've had a lot of Florida guys on, and I don't know how we've done a few episodes since 2018. So I'm honored to have you on as well. But a lot going on this week. I
think I've done Beltway beef, but I haven't done Cattleman's Call.
Well, now you're getting the trifecta in there
really
if you've been in the newspaper.
That's right.
Yeah. But, Dusty, what's it been like this week? Folks from Florida coming up and joining their fellow cattle producers up on the Hill. You've been getting the miles in this week?
Yes. We look forward to this trip every year. I spent about 4 years, a little over 4 years up here in a previous life working in a congressional office. So it's like old home week for me sometimes coming back. I've been back home with the association for 14 years, 13 of those as Director of Field Services, and now I've wrapped up my first full year as Executive Vice President. And so I've transitioned a little bit, but one of my favorite trips is always coming back to D.C. and really getting those producers back into kind of the other side of my life, right? I grew up on a cattle ranch. It's all I ever did. But then I took this opportunity to come up here and work, and it was a tremendous point in my life, and to kind of show off how our nation capitals work and how these policy decisions are made and share that experience with the greatest people in the world, which are cattle producers from across the country, to bring them here and show that to them and help shepherd them around. I look forward to it every year.
What is it like also, though, sharing the frustrating things that happen out here in the nation's capital? We're talking about transportation. That's our topic
Right.
we've been assigned today. But that's been a frustrating topic for many years. I know we're putting some Band-Aids on it. That is helpful to livestock truckers and to ranchers. But what is that like, sharing that firsthand experience of working on the Hill and saying, you know what, we do want to, we're trying to get these issues solved, but sometimes it moves at a glacial pace.
One of my favorite quotes is from Mark Twain, and he says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And so these things roll around and roll around and roll around. And the Florida Cattlemen's Association was founded in 1934 on issues, private property rights and water, and the kind of things that we talk about and work on today. And transportation is the same thing. When I worked up here 14 years ago, it was a weekly conversation, and 14 years later, we're still doing it. We've made some headway. We've got some good stuff done. But like most things in our industry, it's a continued fight, and we can always do better, and we can always take that next step. So the frustrating thing is that it does take time, but the positive is we're moving in the right direction.
And Kent, from your perspective on the current transportation policies in place, maybe some of the exemptions or waivers, where are we at here in the spring of 2026 in terms of an update on transportation and what is working and what we could do a little better?
Well, I think at the beginning of this Congress, if you look at last year, there was a lot of optimism. We were going to see a transportation bill move forward. We were finally going to see some movement on this, having a majority, a Republican majority in the House and in the Senate, and having the White House prioritizing, improving supply chains. It looked like things were going to be moving quickly. But this is a massive undertaking. And here we are in 2026. Still, we've got to get this thing moving. It's going to have to start in the House. We expect the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee to move on that hopefully soon. But it unfortunately it kind of keeps feeling like Lucy pulling the football. Every time we hear that there's going to be a hearing or there's going to be a markup on this, and then there's another slight delay. And I don't knock the committee for that. I think it's a true sign of just how cumbersome this process is and how massive this bill is, because it's not just roads, it's all forms of transportation. So when you look at the transportation infrastructure needs we have in this country, this is no small task. But for our industry, this is very important. That's one of the strengths we have is having cattle in all 50 states and being able to thrive. But we're not shipping them by rail. We're shipping them by truck. We've got to have rules in place that give us the freedom to do that and continue to operate.
And so where are we currently sitting with hours of service, with electronic logging devices? And again, I've been talking about this for my 12, 13 years in this business, and as a farm broadcaster, as a producer, and as hosting these conversations on the podcast. Where are we currently at in terms of those acronyms?
Well, as Dusty said, we've made some steps in the right direction. We've started chipping away at that over several years. But right now, we're still reliant on an appropriations rider to extend the exemption for the electronic logging devices. And so that's only as good as the fiscal year. And so here we are again.
But in terms of what are we at with that?
So we're still in a good spot there. When you look at the hours of service, the rules are still, you got 14 hours on duty, maximum drive time of 11 hours, and then 10 consecutive hours of rest. You have a 150-mile exemption on the front end, 150-mile on the back end, and that's good. It's definitely a step in the right direction. But what we're pushing for is a full exemption. But the other big thing that still haunts us is these truck weight limits, and the fact that we're still operating under rules that were set back in the 1980s when you've got technology that's vastly improved. We know that additional axle with the increased weight, it actually helps us brake a whole foot shorter. And so we need to be able to get that through.
And what negative impact did the movie Smoking the Bandit have on truck weights in terms of poundage? Because I know that was a big issue when they were bringing that Coors east.
Yeah,
Well, I think
you weren't ready for that.
The biggest difference on if you're hauling Coors beer, right, or you're hauling Samsung TVs is completely different than if you're hauling cattle, a live animal.
Yep.
And when you talk about a state like Florida, when those cattle are leaving the southeast and headed to the Midwest or Texas or somewhere out there, it's a 12, 13, 1,400-mile trip where they need to have air moving over them. We don't get any mountain passes between here and Amarillo, between Okeechobee, Florida, and Dalhart, Texas. There's no mountains to go over and sit and be cool, right? Those cattle need to be moving. They need to have air flowing over them to properly get there and keep the level of animal husbandry that we expect. Mm-hmm. There's a whole host of things between here and there that we have to have in mind, but those drivers, not only are they the great drivers that go up and down the road and safety free that haul everything that we use in this country, they've got a live animal back there. They got to have a little cowboy in them, right? They got to be able to handle these situations that having this live animal on that truck brings them. So those cattle haulers that exist out there, man, they're not your everyday trucker, right? So they shouldn't be treated like your everyday trucker because they're not. They've got a completely different set of skills, hauling a completely different cargo. And I think when we educate those decision makers, that's a point that we often make with them. Nothing against our other truck drivers that exist out there, but these guys and gals are specialized and they know what they're doing and they can get the job done. We just got to give them the tools to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that too, the training that they go through, I mean, the people that are operating these trucks, they're operating under the beef quality assurance standards, and that's not an easy process. So you got to know not only how to safely load and unload those cattle, you're also taking under consideration the different climate conditions, issues you're going to face on the road. You're calculating all of that and building it in and trying to get that in with your loading time. We want to get these animals from point A to point B with the least amount of stress possible. That's good for the animals. It's good for the drivers. And until we have certainty on things like hours of service and truck weights, then it just makes it that much more difficult.
An interesting point on the truck weight thing. In Florida, we're no stranger to natural disasters. We'll get a hurricane. We'll get a bad drought. We'll get fires we're dealing with right now. And so our state is really good about raising our weight restrictions in the time of crisis. Mm-hmm. And we get enough of them that we got a pretty great data set that shows our safety measures don't change when we do that. So why we don't enjoy the weights where they need to be full time, there's a big part of the year often where we're running under increased weights under disaster declaration for one reason or another, and we do not see a change in incident rate. And so I think it shows why not be able to run like that all the time.
Yep. And that's one thing. Maybe touch on that, Dusty, too. I think there's people in the cattle community that don't realize how many cattle are in Florida.
Sure.
But that means a lot of cattle are going out of Florida, too, to get finished as well.
The vast majority. We're sitting there, depending on the year and who does the tally count when they run by the gate, we're some drive between 9 or 11th out of the 50 states. In cow-calf numbers there. And so we're a major player, but what we have in Florida that makes us so specific is we still have more of the larger operations than other states. We still have a larger average herd size, certainly than our other friends in the Southeast, but much comparable and even bigger than a number of western states. So we see a lot of lot loads, a lot of cow truck fulls of cattle coming there at a higher percentage than many other states do. So this issue has always been at the top of mind of us because it's so vital to the way that our cattle industry in the state of Florida operates. The vast majority of those calves, if they're not staying to be a replacement animal, they're probably getting on a truck and headed somewhere. And so it touches literally almost every single cattle producer in our state. At some point, a calf they produce gets on a truck and has a long trip, not a short one, a long trip. And so this has been a top priority for us for many years. And sometimes we may get to a point, we may be even a bit of a problem. We say, well, hold on, that may work for these other states, but it doesn't quite work for us, And so we've always, because of that, if you're not at the table and having these conversations, you're going to be on the menu. So we make sure that those of us in these states that are a little farther away from those cattle make sure that we got to have our voice heard, and we appreciate NCBA always listening.
And, when you look at it nationwide, every week there's 1 million head of livestock that are on the road, and that's a combination of cattle and hogs. But it just goes to show you that, it's important that we are able to move these animals as efficiently and as safely as possible. And getting these rules right is very important. And it's definitely a priority for our folks in Florida, but it's a priority all over the country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you touched on that too, just getting a breeze across those critters' backs when they're going down the road. And just like Montana, we send a lot of cattle. Most of our cattle go out to get finished as well. We're seeing a few more feedlots pop up and whatnot, but that's something I really hadn't even considered either. Mm-hmm. Animal welfare is always top of mind, making sure that those bovines heading south are taken care of. But I'm not factoring in humidity. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is the planning like for a producer that's going to be loading out? What is that like? What are your producers share with you? And what have you done yourself?
I've had the chance to, I grew up in the saddle and cowboy and loading cow trucks all over the state, and it was always amazing to me the different approach folks had, and I've seen some unique ones. Some and most of them though make sure that they're dealing with a trucker that they've used before, or that has come very highly recommended, and they check these guys out. We have a very well-respected producer in our organization, in our industry, that buys every trucker breakfast that morning. You meet at a restaurant close to where you're loading out. He sits down with them. He buys them a good meal, and he looks them in the eye and makes sure that he feels that they're safe to haul his cattle where he's sending them. And if he doesn't think that guy or gal is ready to haul those cattle, he'll get somebody else. And so our guys take this. I have sat there at the breakfast table with him and seen him do this. And so our guys take it very seriously, because if they're retaining ownership on those cattle, well, they still own them till they get to where they're going. Yep. And if they've sold them to somebody else that they've built a reputation with, they want to make sure that those cattle get there and uphold that reputation. So the selection even of the individual that's going to haul your cattle is a big deal when they got to be on the truck for a while, that our folks do. And so you see them build these relationships. You see those guys say, oh, yeah, he's going to buy us. I love going and hauling for him. He buys us a good breakfast, and he helps us get on the road in a safe manner. And that story goes around our industry like that. So they take very seriously, and they're looking for those guys with those good, strong, proven records that drive either independently or for reputable businesses. But it brings up that great question. No matter if you've sold the cattle to somebody else or you own them yourself, if we get to a point where these cattle can't make that full trip on that truck and they've got to be stopped somewhere and unloaded, oh my goodness. If you're not there as the owner or the person who's buying them, and you've got to unload these trucks at some third-party place and then load them back, what happens if something gets hurt? Who's looking after the animal welfare there? The thing we're talking about is the person that raised those calves is making sure that the ones they've put their heart and soul into, the one that they've raised their mama there for 10 years and her mama before her, and they know these calves, they are making sure they get on that truck safe and the guy or gal who owns them on the other end knows they're getting off that truck unsafe. If we make it to the point where they can't make that full trip, my goodness, who's looking after those animals in the middle? That's a tough part of this journey that we've got to always keep in mind, and that falls under that animal welfare side of it. We want to make sure that proper animal husbandry is taking place the whole way, and the only way to do that is for this person to be that trusted person to be there when they get on the truck, and that trusted person to be there when they get off of it. And you can't do that with the middleman in the middle.
Yeah. And I think that's important to keep in mind too, is the industry standards that we adhere to. That's not just built off of some theoretical points on paper. That's built off of industry practice and what we know. We have a very good idea of how well those animals will perform, and obviously we don't want to leave them on there for any longer than we have to. But there are dangers also with unloading them halfway through. I mean, those cattle are in an unfamiliar area. It creates additional stress for them. Plus, we don't know what else has been in that area, what they may be exposed to. So it's important that we can get those cattle safely to the next part of the supply chain. And if you're a feedlot operator, you're depending on those cattle to arrive at a certain point. And also, if you're a processor, you've got them scheduled and ready to go too. So it's important that key part of the supply chain, that we have trustworthy people that can do that. And as Dusty said, this is still very much a reputation-based business. Part of that reputation is knowing that these drivers have the proper training and that it's consistent across the board. That's one of the great things the industry does. It brings further accountability and integrity to the process. And so when we're educating Capitol Hill, that's a key thing that we reinforce, is the fact that this isn't just a normal driver or anybody that can just pick this up. There's a lot of skill, there's a lot of knowledge that goes into it, and it is really a reputation-based business.
So somebody might be saying, well, why haven't you all fixed this yet? And why is it such a priority now? I guess, what's your response to that?
Well, I think you also have to look at the other side of that, and who's hesitant to support us on these things. And a lot of times it's safety groups. They're worried about heavier trucks, so they're worried about more trucks. When you're looking at truck weights and hours of service, we obviously don't want more trucks on the road. We want to have consolidated shipments. We want to be more efficient in what we do. We think with these changes, we'll actually have a safer system. And overall, that's how it is. But you also have pushback from railroads. I mean, they don't want competition on the freight, and so they see that a lot. But we are very unique in the fact that we are hauling live animals. We're not hauling inanimate objects. This isn't something that you can just park on the side of the road or in many ways automate. This takes a highly skilled driver to be able to do this. And because of that, we feel like these exemptions should be allowed and should be encouraged.
And we've seen, again, extensions, exemptions, all the way through COVID up to now. You talk about those declarations. That's a big word for me today. Declaration of Independence. Those declarations in the state of Florida as well. And again, going back to that point where the data and the safety that is tracked in the state of Florida as well is so important. So, and Dusty, jumping back into your involvement working on the Hill as well, it can be a little bit frustrating for producers, but sometimes you have to be a little patient, it seems, out here, and it's just kind of like working trailing heifers or just those cows that don't want to go to the corrals to wean here at the end of the fall. You got to be a little patient with them and keep pressing them a little bit, or you got to be persistent there too.
Well, thank you to the appropriators that have always seen that this language is there and stays there, and that's built on building relationships here with Kent and others on the NCBA team, and the involvement of state affiliates coming upfield and building those relationships with appropriators, where they say, hey, we understand this is a heavy lift, and hopefully we'll get there one day on its own, but in the meantime we can help you and make sure the right thing is done this way. So we don't want to say too much in terms of feeling impatient for the work they've done, because them keeping it there and putting it there has been a tremendous thing for our industry. So thank you to them. But absolutely, we're going to continue to work to try to get it a little more permanent. But hopefully, if it takes us a little bit longer to get there, those appropriators that we've built such good relationships with through NCBA's involvement, they continue to treat us and do the right thing by keeping those exemptions there, knowing that we're trying all we can do to get it done forever. Yep. And so, yeah, is it frustrating that we got to keep that fight up? Well, sure. But there's also some good guys, right? There's some white hats in there. There's some guys that have showed up for us and said, no, we're going to make sure as you're working on this that we're going to have your back. And we can't do anything but thank them.
I feel a little called out there.
My
mink-colored hat from Greeley Hat
That's
Works
right.
here.
That's right. Mine's black on the inside.
Yeah, that's a nice Greeley.
That's right.
I left mine at home. Sorry.
Well, it's okay. It
all
gets
right.
a little windy here in D.C. We might have to get stampede strings for when you guys have events up on the rooftop, because
right.
I was always sucking
That's
her
right.
down like I was ready to nod and come out of the box
That's
there.
right.
But
That's right.
Kent, from your perspective, could we see some meaningful legislation passed here before the election?
I think we're really trying to push it. I mean, we're giving it everything we can, and that we work with a lot of other groups that share the same concerns. We need a surface transportation bill. We need to move this forward. I think it is tough. This is an election year, and honestly, the House and the Senate are having a hard time funding the government right now and probably supporting a Mother's Day resolution. But it's tough. In addition to that, there's a lot of other things competing for the calendar. You look at the Farm Bill, you look at issues concerning the Homeland Security, issues happening in the Strait of Hormuz, and a lot of other things that are out there. So there's not a lot of bandwidth, but this is a very important issue. And I think we're going to see some movement, at least on the House side. The Senate side, I think, will take its cues from the House side. So hopefully once this starts moving, we'll see some action. But we are running out of time. Yep. And if that's the case, then we'll see this process start all over again in the next Congress. And I hope that's not the case, because this is not something that we can just continue to put off. We have real infrastructure needs in this country. We have real safety needs in this country. And as an industry, we need Congress to step up, do the work, and provide some meaningful changes that'll benefit all of those small business owners, all of our cattle producers that are out there that need these updated changes.
With fuel prices and other input costs being what they are right now, less trucks on the road could be a boon for a lot of different sectors.
Maybe we need to just bring back big cattle drives again, just
Oh,
some
sure.
metropolitan areas to get to where you need to go.
Honestly, we've had to correct that narrative on the Hill a few times, and but not recently. We got some pretty smart people out there, but I'm not saying that conversation hadn't come up before.
It's wild. It's like there's an election every 2 years, it seems. Mm-hmm. But in all seriousness, that is something to consider too. Is when new members do come to Washington, whether it's in the House or the Senate, you and your team, it's a re-education or not even a re-education, it's education on the matter to so many if they're not involved or have knowledge in livestock production.
There's significant turnover on Capitol Hill and in the agencies, and on Capitol Hill, it's not just with members, it's with staff too. Yep. And so that's why we work so closely with our affiliates, and it really is a very coordinated grassroots effort because we share a lot of information. And we also lean on each other too, because we'll do a lot of heavy lifting here. We'll go in and meet with a lot of these folks, but at the end of the day, they want to see Dusty. They want to see our producers from Florida. They want to connect, and being able to have that local tie is always important. And it's great for us because we know who we work for. We work for our members that are out there in the countryside, and it really does help deliver that.
Yep.
That there's that saying, all politics are local, right? And I want to kind of put a little call out there because it wasn't an easy decision for me when I came to work in D.C. I made a living horseback in my whole life. Other than when I was in graduate school and helping teach some classes and doing research, I'd made a living horseback. It's what I'd done, and I never lived closer than 14 miles of town in my life, and I lived at 7th and East Cap. Right, I walked to my office right next to the Capitol building, in Longworth or Cannon, for those times. It was a severe culture shock and difference for me. But it made me extremely more marketable. It made me a better person because of some of the issues and things I had to sit down. And so I say that for this. If anybody who's listening out there that's in our industry gets the opportunity to serve either in an elected office or as a staff member, you should really look into it and consider it, because if you're not going to represent our industry here, who's going to? Yep. And I say that as somebody whose family has put their money where their mouth is, because my wife and I have 2 young children. She runs the Florida FFA Foundation. She's very busy. I'm very busy. She just got elected in a special election to the State House of Representatives because we needed something else to do. No, jokingly, because good people need to step up and serve, and the opportunity comes there. It wasn't on our bingo card for the year. It wasn't something we set out to do, but the opportunity arose, and good people have got to step up and serve. And so if you're listening to this and you think, man, I could run for county commission, or I could run for state house, or I could run for Congress, or I could go get a job and work there, and you have the opportunity to do it, do it. We need you. The industry needs you. Rural America needs you, because when you get here, the other side of stuff you can learn. You can learn where all the bathrooms are and all the tunnels are and how to get around Washington, D.C. and how to deal with the people. But in inborn knowledge of agriculture, man, you will run circles around people here in ag policy because you know it internally. And so I encourage you, anybody that's listening, if you can come up here and help us serve, not just for a fly-in, not just through your membership. Those are important. Pay your dues. Come to the meetings. But if you get an opportunity to actually come here and serve, do it. Do it. And any level of government where you can help make decisions for agriculture, do it.
Yep. Very well said. And I was going to crack a joke there. You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. I'm like, good thing we're not shipping cattle through there. It'd be a lot of feed and mess to clean up too. But that does bring up, it's not just trucking either. I mean, we have producers in the great islands over in Hawaii that ship a lot of cattle on ships. We can actually use the word shipping. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are some restrictions and issues that our fellow producers over in Hawaii face?
Yeah, there's unfortunately an issue that we've seen very little progress in many years, and that is repealing the Jones Act. The Jones Act is a federal statute that requires all goods that are transported between U.S. Ports to be transported on U.S. flagged vessels with U.S. crews. And so that greatly limits the shipping opportunities we have between Hawaii and the mainland. Hawaii is a great place to grow cattle, and if you've ever had the beef from there, you know. I mean, it's a fantastic product. But it's a significant cost for our producers in Hawaii. They have to ship them. Sometimes, they have to ship them. If they can't ship them directly to a U.S. port, then they have to go through Canada or find other ways. And that is it's unfortunate that here we have these thriving American businesses that are hindered by an antiquated law. We've seen some changes recently, some waivers from the Trump administration to relieve some of that congestion, and we think that it's time for Congress to review that. There is a significant amount of pushback from doing anything remotely close to touching the Jones Act because unions are very strong about that. And in the past, they've taken some very aggressive positions and threatening positions over this. So it's a very serious issue. But it's a very serious problem for our producers, and we would fully support at least having that conversation and talking about some changes that need to be made. Yes, the U.S. needs to have a strong domestic shipping system. We need to promote that. But we also need to promote relief for our cattle producers in Hawaii. We need to give them some competitive access and find a way to update what's close to a 100-year-old law that continues to hold so many of our producers out there, continue to hold them down, to hold them back. And in addition to Hawaii, we have producers in Florida and other parts of the country that they trade all over the Caribbean as well. And so that also limits our ability to trade with those U.S. ports. So this really is a common sense thing, but there's a lot of deep opposition to it, and it's going to take real leadership to get it done. So NCBA will continue to work on this. We know it's a priority for our producers in Hawaii. It's a priority for many of our producers around the country, and it's time for a change.
Well, again, it's been a big week for producers. It's probably one of the largest legislative conferences attendance-wise. State showed up here this week with their members advocating on multiple issues, whether it's Endangered Species Act, transportation, markets, whatever it may be. They have a voice out here every single day, but as Dusty and Kent have both said, it's important to come and be boots on the ground and be face-to-face. And I think, again, that's important too. As you mentioned, the staff.
That's right.
Because a lot of the time there may be a vote going on, the elected member may be back home campaigning or having town halls, whatever that might be. But that staff relationship is so important too, and that goes back to the state association too, having that relationship with the field staff. I always joke in Montana we have enough people now that we have 2 congressmen now.
My goodness.
Well, it blows my mind that they have to make 4 stops when they're out here, or Wyoming, or whatever it might be. Wyoming just has 1 as well now. But what is that like, though, planning when you're coming out here and talking maybe and meeting with an elected official and staff that maybe aren't very supportive, but you still have to meet with them?
Sure. So we unfortunately aren't able to get to every office because we got 28. Wow. Okay. So, but we work hard. My first year back at the association, of course, I just left up here and I knew everybody in the delegation. It wasn't hard for me to get meetings. And I realized after that first day of meetings, I probably almost got fired by the presidents at the time because I had 17 meetings on day 1. And they looked at me. It wasn't anything for me. I was used to it. But they looked at me like, we're not walking another step in these hard marble halls. You have killed us today. And so I've learned to dial that back and be a little bit more targeted with our members and not try to hit that whole delegation when you have one like ours. But we absolutely sit that. We look at it. We say, okay, what are the issues we're probably going to have this year? What are the members of Congress? There's some that we need to see every year because they're huge supporters and they want to help us, and we know that they will amplify our message. Okay, we know that when we tell them that we need this, they're going to let others know. So we make sure we see them. But then we get really smart and targeted with it. We say, this is the issue. This is the member of Congress that needs to hear about it and can help sway others, and we go directly to them. And we don't hit them with every single issue that's on that sheet, but we say, we need your help with this. Can you help it with that? So we get very targeted when you have a delegation as big as ours. And sometimes I wish we had 4 or 5 and we could go spend a good amount of time with all of them, get them fully briefed, but it's just not the situation. So we try to be, just like we all are on our operations, as efficient with our time to get the most good out of it. So we really step back. We start about 3 weeks ahead of time, really focusing and communicating with staff and getting those meetings set up. And I'm very proud that we get the number of meetings with actual members that we do. There's nothing wrong with meeting with staff. As a former staffer, I can tell you the importance of that. But there's something about when you can get that member there and they can look into the producer's eyes and they can have a real conversation about whatever issue. And so we work really hard on trying to have a high percentage of member meetings. But if we can't meet with a member, we were more important to take a meeting with that appropriate staff and educate them as much as possible. But we really do take a targeted approach. We don't just come up here and hang out and have a nice dinner somewhere or do whatever. We work, and we are pounding those halls. My feet are killing me right now because we've been on those hard marble floors for 2 days straight, and we're way into the double digits with our meetings. We had a bunch of them, and we saw 85% of those meetings with the member. Yep. And so that type of approach is so important. And I know other states do an even better job than we do at seeing members. Again, nothing wrong with seeing staff, but when you are up here and you are respected, the work NCBA does helps us open those doors. When you as a state organization and a national organization are respected enough that those members are going to take their busy time and sit down with you, we're going to make sure that the time we have with them is well spent. And so we prepare, we go in there, we have a game plan, and we do our best to execute it.
You can't all be like Montana and Wyoming. Get 100% of your meetings.
That's
done.
right, 100% every year.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be tremendous. That'd be tremendous.
Gentlemen, we are truly at the end of the day here. It's been a long day. A lot of great agency speakers and updates. EPA, USDA, and the different departments there as well. But what's something maybe we skipped over? Just a message you have for our friends that are watching or listening here to the podcast.
I think if you have an issue, make sure we know about it. This is at the state level. This is at the national level. We can't help you influence these decision makers to help you with your problem if you don't know about it. The last thing we could do, if you see a trouble coming, the first thing you should do is let us know. And we might be able to head it off at the pass, right? We might be able to get something done before it comes a long-term problem. So it's one of those. If you see a problem, let us know about it, and we'll do our best to get it on the radar of somebody that can help fix it. Because myself, my family, we're producers, we do that. But in my role as staff, I'm only as good as the information I can get from our people out there, from our volunteer leaders and from our members. If I don't know there's an issue going on somewhere, I can't do anything about it. And so reach out, join, pay your dues, be a part of the organization, but be an active part, right? Read the stuff that comes to you, listen to the podcast, and actively participate by giving information back to those that are up here trying to fight for you in Washington, D.C. or in your state. Let them know what you need.
I think the most important thing that our listeners can do is build that relationship with your member of Congress and with their staff. Unfortunately, we're not the only ones in cowboy hats up here. The activist groups parade people up here, pull them out, throw a hat on them, give them a piece of paper, and have them say things that are contradictory to everything that this industry stands for. And if we're not there to correct that narrative, that really starts with having that relationship. But if we're not there to correct that, then not addressing it is an endorsement of every lie that those people have shared. And so I think it's really important that you don't just rely on others to do this. Take the initiative, build that, and get involved in our policy process. The strength of NCBA and our affiliates is that grassroots, policy-driven organization. And if we're going to continue to have a strong and vibrant industry and build stronger opportunities for the next generation, then this is where it starts. It starts in making sure that we have the laws and regulations in place that are beneficial to us, and that there aren't other people that are speaking on our behalf that don't have our best interest in mind.
Well, again, there's a lot going on out here this week. Farm bill vote. Oh, no.
I want to say,
I'll let you do it.
along those lines, a few years ago, Gene Laws, who's the past president of our organization, every year our guys come up with a theme, and his was open gates, open minds. And we always, anytime a member of Congress or their staff or a state legislator wants to go on a ranch tour, we do the absolute best, and we find them a real ranching operation in their district, and we take them out there, and they spend time with the producers, and they see it. And so, I have some more off-color ways to say that, but open gate and open minds is a way to really get folks out there and let them learn. A lot of times, if they can see it and they can say, man, it'll click for them, right? So open those gates, open some minds, and it adds to what Kent said. And that does more for the work we do than anything else. Yep.
Well, again, gents, thank you for joining us and touching on an important topic for all of us. And again, hopefully we can do an update when some of these exemptions are finalized and not extended or waived or however the agencies want to clarify it. Right? Yeah,
that's exactly right.
But and I look forward to being the keynote speaker at the Florida convention here, so I can go
one
down
of
to
these days.
One of these days. I'll
right.
get to come down to the island.
I know a guy. That's right.
But again, thank you to all of our folks joining us here today. Whether you're listening or watching, yes, you can actually watch the podcast for a majority of these episodes. Whether you're on Apple or Spotify or YouTube Music, or if you just want to watch it on YouTube on your smart TV at home, you can do that as as well. So thanks for joining us again. We're out in our nation's capital this week at LegCon 2026, and we look forward to seeing you down the road wherever we're having our Cattlemen's Call conversations. But I appreciate Dusty and Kent for joining us here today, and for you joining along as well. With that, friends, I'm Lane Nordlund. We'll catch you
Thanks
next
for
time.
tuning in to NCBA's Cattlemen's Call podcast with Lane Nordlund. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.